Bailey from Glowforge, and I hope you're having a great December. I just wanted to pop in and let you know that today we will be restreaming one of our favorite streams from the last year, and that is photo engraves. So it's a really good one. We'll be sharing tips and tricks about engraving high-res photos on your Glowforge Plus or Pro. And it did come out originally before the Glowforge Aura launched, so we won't be mentioning any Aura tips or tricks in there. But good news, if you're a Glowforge Aura owner or you're thinking about getting one, it is a great engraving machine as well. Just keep in mind it does take longer to do these prints on an Aura. Also, I wanted to mention some of our holiday magic deals are still available. Right now you can get $1,000 off a Glowforge Pro, $500 off a Glowforge Plus, and our Glowforge Aura is $9.99 right now for a limited time. Also, starting today, December 14th, and through December 19th only, we are offering expedited shipping. So if you're trying to get Glowforge under a tree by the holidays, the expedited shipping for free should help you get there. Have a happy holiday.
Hello, welcome. I'm Bailey from Glowforge. This is Nick from Glowforge.
Hello.
He's frantically bringing up a photo. He realized we had it on the wrong computer at the last moment. So this is
technology,
the joy of live television. But I was really excited to see there's like so many of you already here watching. So
yeah.
welcome.
Is this an anomaly, or you were really into photo engraving?
I think they might be really into photos. I mean, we always have a good handful of people here, but there are more. So I don't know. Maybe you guys you're just really into the idea of engraving photos. I mean, me too. Yeah. Of course. Why not?
Well,
people ask all the time. We've never done a live stream about it.
That's true.
So I'm excited.
Maybe let's start out by let's have people throw in the comments what you're interested in learning. And then as we go through, if we can kind of shift our talking points to accommodate, then we will.
Yeah.
Because I have an idea of what I want to share with everybody out here, but maybe I got it wrong. I'm not really sure. So let me know what you want to find out. If we can cover it, awesome. If we don't, let's just do photo engraving part 2, and we'll make sure we get all that stuff.
Yeah,
answered.
so let us know. That's a great point. So yeah, let us know what you're hoping to learn today. I'd also love to know, I'll actually put up a little poll right now. I'll do this live. Do you already have a Glowforge? And you all can let me know. Ask your community. There we go. You can let me know if you already have a Glowforge and you're watching to just do prints with us and get inspiration and hang out, which is cool. Or if you're thinking about getting one soon and you're trying to get questions answers. We also have at least one Glowforge expert in chat. So if you have like a nitty-gritty question that we don't see live, you can ask it in chat and they'll get to it. So do we want to show what we're talking about today?
Yeah, I mean, here is a photo. Some of you may have seen this photo before. We've used it a couple of times because it's a good demo.
Let's show it close up
it is, It's a stock photo, admittedly, that I got.
An attractive family.
They
look happy.
I could pretend it's mine, but that doesn't look like me. But,
that was Nick a few years ago, before the pandemic.
I know, life's been tough. But this is just an example of a photo engrave. And in all honesty, this is probably easier. This is on Maple, yeah. It's probably easier than you think to get success like this. And really, printing a photo is the same as printing anything else. There's just a few things to bear in mind and a few tips that I can give you to help increase your chances of getting the result that you probably have in your mind. Now, some of this might get in the weeds. I'm going to try and keep it relatively high level, at least until later in the stream. If it gets too much, like all caps, whoa, slow down in the comments, and I'll try and reel it back in a bit. I want to be helpful, so let me know if I'm not doing that, and we'll start.
All right, we've got one question that you can try to weave into your teachings. Kendra is wondering.
I'm not a guru, just to be clear. I've done this twice before.
Photo engrave guru. Kendra is asking about how to get the print time down lower with a quality photo engrave. She's doing a memorial photo for this Sunday.
Okay, fantastic. That's a great question. Let me see where the best place is that I can put that in. Okay, all right, yeah. The second point, I think. So, top tip, first tip. And this is maybe obvious, but I just want to make sure that it's super clear. You're going to get the best results if you start with the best photo possible. So if you find something from, back in 92 when we had our first camera phones, and it's like 16 by 16 pixels, and it was a really bright day and everything's blown out. Unfortunately,
just scroll back on your Instagram grid.
Yeah, right.
Oh no!
There's only so much that we can do to be successful there. And the reason is the way that Glowforge creates images like this. Now, we're not using ink, as you probably know. We're using a laser to discolor the surface of this material. And it uses a similar technique to newspaper printing, like a halftone. And it's basically a whole bunch of different dots that we shoot at this material. And the closer together the dots are in concentration, the darker it appears. We call it a halftone or dithering. And it's how we create these sort of gradations of black to white. And if you get that handheld, Bailey, you might be able to see, if you get onto like an area around here, if you get really close, can you see how it's just a little bit speckly?
Oh, yeah.
And that really illustrates very nicely how this image is made. And the reason I bring it up is if your image is mostly comprised of the same colors, let's say you are dressed as a green monster and you're stood in a forest in the middle of summer and everything's green, everything is going to kind of appear to be the same color and texture. And so the contrast that you get is going to be pretty limited. So those images are probably not going to turn out that well. But if you can find something that is relatively high contrast, if you're doing people, maybe the background is separated from them a little bit. For animals, for people, make sure the eyes look good. If you can get a catchlight in the eyes, you know, that little glint from the sun or a flash, that really helps bring them to life too. But anything like that that you can do to make that photo better would be great. And then tying into that, to get the best results possible, you also want to make your photo engraves as big as possible too. So the bigger the print file, like physically big in terms of size,
like
the better quality.
Yeah, okay.
And that's literally because it gives the laser more room to move from areas of light to dark. And so it's not suddenly moving from light to dark. And so the bigger that you can make your image, the better. Now, obviously, this ties into print time, which we were just talking about a second ago. And there's a couple of different ways that we can counteract that. One of them that I use quite extensively to make sure that this is successful is to take your image and actually crop it. Cut away all the stuff that's not important. So for this image, there was too many trees around the background. So I just cropped into the people. So I'm focusing on the subject. And that means for that same print size, this is about 5x7, I can actually zoom in and make the people bigger. And that result is going to be better. The other thing that we can do to increase or decrease print time, coming back to this person's question, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, is to change the settings that we're using here. And I think this is a nice segue coming into the app where I can explain a couple of things.
Great.
Now, just to recap, tip number 1, use the best quality photo you possibly can. Tip number 2, print that photo as big as you can. And tip number 2B, crop that photo so you can get rid of anything that's not important, so you can make the subject as big as you can within the space that you have. All right.
Can I interject with some live questions?
Yes.
Okay, these are a little bit
That's all right.
derail a little bit, but Ken is asking, any thoughts on coating wood with borax? Have we done that before? Borax? I don't even know what that is.
Well, borax is like a cleaner. Yeah.
What does that do, Ken?
Yeah, Ken, I have never done that before, Ken. What happens? Let us know.
Our
Maybe
thoughts are that we are intrigued.
yeah. If you have a URL where you have an image or an example, I'd love to see it. All right.
All About the Bass. Love that song. I want to learn how to make the engraving look more like a photo than a cartoon, for lack of a better word. Yeah, I think those are kind of the tips that Nick's talking about, especially, gosh, that little tip that you said about the eyes. Like if you can have, if you choose photos where there's a bit of a light reflection in the eye, so it's not just like a black hole eye, but it has some like element of light in it, that really helps.
I would be very interested to know as well what you mean about cartoon. If you maybe have an example that I can see, I can make some assumptions, some guesses.
Yeah.
One of which is, and I know this sometimes happens, people choose the 3D engrave technique to engrave a photo, which instead of shooting the laser at the same level of power but different concentrations to make those areas of light and dark, it adjusts the power of the laser. So for dark areas in your image, it's going to increase the power and it's going to engrave deeper. For the lighter areas, it's going to be less deep. Now that works pretty well for some things like landscapes and maps, but for people, you can end up with this like weird, unnatural 3D element where...
little uncanny valley.
Yeah, like technically it does kind of represent the contours of people's faces, but the colors aren't right, and so it throws you off. And sometimes that can look a bit cartoony. So I don't know if maybe that's what's happening.
Okay, we got some borax intel.
Okay, all right,
John K.
let's learn.
By the way, if you're in chat and you see John in here, John is like a super Glowforge expert.
John.
Hi, John. John's gonna be doing some videos with us soon, actually. And check out his channel. He has really, really good Glowforge videos. But he says borax will make the engraving darker.
Oh, interesting.
So
well,
you just kind of coat like a raw wood in it? Is that the idea?
I guess so.
We've not heard this tip. Wow.
So, well, it's funny. The last thing that I put on my agenda, my list of things to talk about, is materials. And I have my preferences. Everybody has theirs. And one of the tips that I have is that generally light woods are going to be better because you're going to get the greater levels of contrast between light and dark. And I particularly like the plywoods because the center of the plywood tends to be a lot blacker than a hardwood when you engrave it. And so you get a greater level of contrast. It sounds like maybe, and I've not tried this before, so this could be photo engraving part 2 where we learn this together. You might be able to put Borax on something like cherry or walnut.
And then get darker.
And perhaps you get a darker result so you can increase that level of contrast. That's awesome. And this is why we love the Glowforge community. I mean,
oh yeah, there's other people. Rhonda and Brian are both chiming in. Everyone knows about Borax. Okay,
well, me and Bailey will be over here. If one of you wants to take over, this is fantastic. I love it.
What do we even? We don't lose our jobs by asking questions.
I know. Yeah. Well, it's great. Thank you for sharing. This is the kind of thing that we love. This coming together. Let's share what we know. I can share what I know, but my experience is pretty limited. You out there have done things way beyond what I've been able to try. So this is fantastic. This is gold. I'm writing it down right now. All right, lost my train of thought for a second, but we were talking about big photos, make it as big as possible, crop, catch light for the eyes, and then I was going to go to here. Oh, we were going to talk about settings and print time. Okay, all right. And the reason I want to mention this is, I'm just going to upload this photo here, is we have 2 settings available in the Glowforge app for printing. Where's my photo? Here it is. Okay. We have what we call a draft photo, and we have the HD photo engrave.
Yep.
And they employ 2 slightly different techniques. Now, if we're talking about getting a pretty good result straight off the bat, draft photo, to be honest, is going to be the best one. HD photo requires a lot more control, finagling, editing, tweaking of your image.
Okay.
And I'll explain why in just a sec. So,
now, Nick, did you download that photo in color and then just make it grayscale with like a super basic program or something? Okay.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Step number 1.
And actually, I even wrote that down and forgot or neglected to read it.
There it is. Yeah.
We were talking about high and low contrast and figuring out what's going to work best. If you simply open your image in something like Preview on a Mac, I'm sure Windows has a similar kind of thing, and just switch it to black and white, even on your phone, for example, that'll give you a good idea of what things are going to look like.
Turn up the exposure so it looks like a 2005 MySpace photo.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's just hair and like under the chin shadow. And that's
Nick and I could show you our high school photos. We're scene.
That's another live stream. Yeah, those are the days. Fun memories. But if everything in that image looks kind of the same color, shade of black or gray, like chances are it's going to kind of look that way on the wood too. And you can see with this image that I've blown it up big, we have a really nice spread of white to dark.
Yep.
Now this image I have edited just a little bit, and if we take just a very small deviation for a second, we actually wrote a guide a really long time ago about optimizing photos for engraving. If you go to app.glowforge.com, your dashboard where you would normally print, in the right-hand side, we actually have a quick link to those articles, which are right here. And we have tips for Photoshop, tips for GIMP.
Looks familiar.
GIMP, for those of you who don't know, is like Photoshop, but a free version. It's very capable, very powerful. But if you don't have access to app.glowforge.com, maybe because you're not a Glowforge owner yet, don't worry. You can go to support.glowforge.com. And in here, we have the Your First Prints and More section. And there's a whole bunch of different things down here, guides, tips, tricks, including engraving and cutting out a photo and prepping a photo in GIMP and Photoshop.
Okay, specifically within the app, Nick, they want to know the pros and cons of using pattern versus convert to dots in the settings.
Yeah. Okay. We can absolutely do that. So first of all, let me grab my image. So we're on desktop. I've got my family photo.
I didn't even know that Engrave guide was right there. How handy.
Yeah, it's one of those things where ideally we don't want you to have to futz with your photos too much if you don't have to.
Right.
A draft photo, in many ways, I think is kind of, maybe it's the wrong name. You know, this you might consider draft if you get really up close because you can see the little dots, right? But actually the result is better. Maybe it should be a quick photo instead of draft photo or something. Anyway,
it makes it sound like that should just be your draft board. It's supposed to be a prototype. It's supposed to be a test.
Exactly.
Well, that's not really maybe what it is.
Yeah. It's so interesting and it's so difficult at the same time. Yeah. Well, I mean, it might have been me back in the day.
Right, no, that's what I mean. It might have been us.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Natasha's saying, looks like the Glowforge interface changed. Yeah, Natasha, I mean, it's changing all the time. If y'all haven't been on app.glowforge.com, we've been adding a lot more the design of the month, guides, things like that. So
Yeah. And we're trying to improve it all the time to make it better for you. And from the feedback that you send us too.
I keep hearing they want folders. That's the one I keep hearing.
That's me too.
Nick too.
Posing as a customer saying.
A very influential customer is asking.
Tick Nailer is asking for it. Anyway, okay. So here's my image in the app. Now, what Glowforge will do when you upload a photo to the app is show you what it's going to do. And by that, I mean, if we zoom in, we can actually start to see those little dots. You see the dots that we represented on the, that we were able to see on the print? We can see them here too. And so this is a good indicator as to how your print might turn out on your image. So again, if it doesn't look great here, chances are it might not look so great in your actual print. But let's dig into the settings for a second, because we've got two here, draft photo and HD photo. I'm going to start with draft photo for 1 second, because I actually think this is the best option for most things. It's the one I use for the most part. Converting to dots and converting to patterns are two different options that kind of achieve the same sort of thing. It's a different way of arranging those little laser strikes.
Okay.
Dots is a lot more, I would say, organic in its nature, whereas patterns is very uniform. If you were to take, for example, a gradient that goes from white to black,
okay,
duplicate it, print one with dots and one with patterns, dots would seem a little bit more smooth. Patterns would be like little blocks of different arrangements of dots. And I've had people find that they work better on certain materials than others. For me personally, I've always thought dots looked best. I always go with dots. And that's why we kind of defaulted to that within the app. However, knowing that some people out there are really interested in experimenting, we wanted to leave the option open for patterns. Much like we do with a lot of these things, the first level of your settings is very simple. Draft photo, HD photo. We don't show any detail. But if you really want to get down to it, you can find it here. My personal preference is always going to be dots. I would suggest if you have time, try patterns, see if you like it best. But I think dots looks more natural because of the way that it arranges those dots. And I think if we were to zoom into here, for example, select our image, and let's change it to patterns. Does it show you? Yeah, you see, did you see how that changed? If we look at the forehead of this gentleman here, for example, you see how now it's like a series of squares? And if I go into here and change to dots, it becomes a lot smoother.
Oh.
You see that? It's very subtle, but it's noticeable. And I'm, you know, like I said, I just think the result is a lot more natural.
Yeah.
Now, draft photo. And this is coming all the way back to that first question of how do I get these things to print in a reasonable amount of time. Draft photo is set up such that this setting here, lines per inch, I know we're getting really into the weeds. I hope this is okay.
I think this is what we want.
I mean, if this is helpful, this is great. I just want to make sure that you are getting what you need. But lines per inch is set specifically so that the laser lines are basically sitting one on top of each other. I.e., every time we do a pass of that engrave, we're hitting the same area once, not twice, 3 times, multiple times. And that way we can guarantee that every time that laser strikes, it's going to make a nice clear dot or a mark on that surface.
Okay.
It also means that we're not going like this too many times, more than we need, which is what increases the print time.
Yep.
Now, there's a trade-off, obviously. Here, this result, if you get super close, we have those little speckles that we talked about. If you don't want that result, you can absolutely do it differently. You can use that HD photo setting. And this is where we're getting, this is where I'm how do I say this? I think HD settings, to be honest, they'll get you a really good result if you were looking to put the work in. If you want to put the work in, it's absolutely great. I don't know if the time you generally need to make that setting work really well is worth it.
If it's that much different. Yeah.
But just to explain the difference here, and we're going to get into kind of like the physics of the materials for a second. Proof grade materials, or a lot of materials. I paused.
Sorry, like no. I'm trying to jump in with chat.
All right.
So they're saying, yes, this is what we want to know. Get in the weeds.
Okay.
But also, they're saying, how did we even get the draft photo option? Is it something that Glowforge adds when there's a picture uploaded? It's a setting.
Oh, yeah,
it's within there.
So, but you're right. It is when a picture is uploaded, and specifically, it's when a bitmap is uploaded.
There you go.
It could be a photograph, but it could also be a logo that you've downloaded from somewhere else. It's just that specific file type.
So if the photo is like a JPEG, is that a no-no?
No, JPEG is good.
Oh, okay.
JPEG is a bitmap. Basically, anything that's made of pixels is totally fine.
So what would be, is there a file type that you would not want your photo in, like a PDF?
If it was a vector image, which would be, let's say, something a little bit more cartoony, if you were to upload this without rasterizing it,
there you go.
Then we'd basically be looking at 15 different sets of power and speeds, rather than this ability to create gradients and areas of light to dark.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense? You're basically looking at, if you want draft photo, if you want that option to be available, you have to upload a bitmap. So JPEGs, PNG, GIF, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Something you take with your phone, that's going to work just fine.
Okay.
If you download something off online and it's a logo and it's saved as an SVG, that's not going to work. You're not going to have that draft photo option. So that's the key there. Hopefully that helps. But to be more direct, once you have your image selected, if you click into Engrave, draft photo is right there. It's pre-saved. It should be available for these materials. Now, I just had a thought, or maybe this is what's being referred to here. When we were testing materials and figuring out what works best for photos, there were certain materials that we personally felt were terrible. They didn't do a good job of providing a nice photographic output. And so you might find that there are some materials there where the setting is missing, because we personally felt that you were at a higher chance of risking or wasting that material by using it. So that was a decision that we made to try and make you more successful. Now, if you want to try draft photo on a different material that's not there, one way that you can do this, which is really easy, load a material that does have the setting. So medium maple plywood, super easy. There you've got your Engrave setting, we've got draft photo. Hit the little arrow to expose the settings right here. Now, without making any changes, we can hit the plus button, give it a name, draft photo 2, for example, save that, and that's going to appear in your custom settings menu. And so now if we go to, I don't know, acrylic, I think maybe acrylic doesn't have draft photos, I'm not sure. Oh no, it does have draft photos. Anyway, if it didn't, it doesn't matter, because it would now be down here in your custom setting.
Nick, Jeff's asking why the default power setting is always at full, because he finds that most photo engraves look better at lower power, usually around 80. Is that just the default? We just have it at full?
Yeah, and that's, for me personally, I found when we're looking at those dots, it gave the blackest mark.
Yep.
And this is maybe where this borax comment comes from. If your photo is mostly comprised of a lot of darker areas, then the overall look is going to seem deep and dark. And you're absolutely right that maybe dialing that power back just a touch might work best. I found full works really good for me. You're absolutely welcome to make those changes. And you do kind of have to go on a case-by-case, photo-by-photo basis. I'm hoping that our product team at some point will use robots and software to like figure all this stuff out so we don't have to and you don't have to. But we're not quite there yet.
Maybe that's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Kind of the opposite question, all about the base, was asking again. When I engrave photos, they look like a fine pencil sketch rather than a photo. I guess that wasn't really a question. The question was, can I send you samples or pictures, just because they're confused about why they're getting that result? Yeah, I'd love to know more about what you're trying and why it looks like that, I wonder.
Yeah, I guess the first point of call would be support.glowforge.com, right? Support@glowforge.com, sorry.
Yeah.
Our customer service.
And you can certainly send them photos.
Yeah, we have a technical support system there that they can take a look at your Engrave results, and we'll try and figure out with you whether you're getting something that's expected or not. Yeah. Another really great place to look if you're having to do this is to go to community.glowforge.com. We at Glowforge, as you probably know, are kind of swamped supporting everybody that's out there. Sometimes you may find different types of advice from customers in the community forum. Things that, like borax, that we have not been able to try ourselves, that you may find really helpful.
Especially engraving on non-proof grade materials, because we tend to only be able to offer advice on proof grade materials because, we have to limit ourselves to being experts on a finite number of things and not all the things in the world that you might put into your Glowforge, but you all can be experts on all those other things.
The light pencil sketch is interesting. I mean, without seeing it's hard to know.
Yeah.
One thing that I might think about is it sort of suggests I'm thinking that maybe the image itself is not as dark as you would want it to be.
Maybe.
That might be the case. If that is the case and you want to try something, I can give you a little hint here. So we're going back into our settings here, and we've got our speed, we've got our power, and we've got our dots, and we've got our lines per inch. Now, all of these different things affect basically the amount of power that's applied to the surface of the material over a period of time, right? And we have our speed set to this number, we have our power set to this number. If your engraving is not dark enough, a couple of things we can do: increase the power, lower the speed. Now, power is already at maximum, so we can't do that. But what you could do is lower the speed. And what that will do is allow the laser to dwell on the material for a little bit longer, which is going to make that mark a little bit darker. Another way that you could do it is by increasing this lines per inch number. And that means that every time the laser goes like this, back and forth, it's going to hit the previous line either just a little bit or a lot, and basically continue to bury itself deeper in the material. And this is kind of where I was getting into that idea of HD photo being a tricky thing to use, because when we think about the photos here, the intention of HD photo was to provide an option so that you can engrave something and it would look more like a natural photo print. So rather than these speckles and dots like a newspaper print, you'd have those gradations of light to dark. Now the trouble is, and this is the tricky bit, we have a material here which has a paper coating on it. It may be standard, it may be not. It may have a proof grade finish. and your materials at home may have the same thing. But as the laser starts to work its way through the material and change the color, there are very few colors that it can actually reach. It can go, tickle the surface a little tiny bit, and then go a little bit deeper, and it might go a little bit more brown. And then all of a sudden, it's as dark as it can go. And it doesn't matter how deep you go, it doesn't get any more black than that. An HD photo takes advantage of that in that it's tickling the same area twice. Should I say tickle? I don't know if that's the right. But you're engraving over the same area multiple times. So you're basically very gently working your way into the surface of the material so you can get a much more subtle result. But because it's such a fine balance of turning this material from no engraving to as dark as it can go, you do have to spend a bit of time working with the photo itself.
That makes sense. So did you mean that it's a double pass always too?
Yes, I think it's more than a double pass.
Oh, interesting. And it just does that automatically. You don't run it multiple times.
No,
it knows to do that.
It's part of it.
Wow,
Yeah,
okay.
it's very slow. It's multiple passes.
Okay.
And the results are spectacular. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately.
We can start.
I'm just wondering if Barry was able to find one of them. What do we have? Is there a picture?
Oh, to show off?
Yeah, there was a picture I did of our CEO holding his son dressed like a lobster.
Oh, he's dressed like a chef. This is a Halloween photo. And our CEO is dressed like a chef, and he's holding a little baby dressed like a lobster. It's so cute.
Yeah.
Who knows where it is? I know Dan loves when we show it off for years and years.
Yeah, these are.
I printed that one.
Yeah,
for ages ago.
This was a long time ago. These are not quite what I was meaning, but this is an example of an HD engrave on a piece of maple, and you can see if we look around. This certain character's head, whose name maybe I'm not allowed to say, you can see how
Big
the color is.
guy.
Yeah, it's changing very subtly from light to dark. Versus this one, where you have those little speckles.
Yes.
Now, in all honesty, if we think about production time, this probably took a few hours of editing and testing and things like that to get it to look like this. Whereas this took one adjustment and then printed in 15 minutes. I know which one I would prefer to go with. It's entirely up to you which one you want to try, but I would say draft photo is going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Now, dots, gradients, something. Oh, printing. Okay. This is the other tip. This is what I would say if anyone wants to try this kind of stuff as well. Photo engraving, just engraving in general, takes some time. Like we all know that, right? So the best tip that I can offer you is take the most important part of your photo and crop it, cut it out. Literally open it in preview or something like that and cut out the bit that matters. For people, it's the face, specifically the eyes. If the eyes don't look right, it looks like you're engraving a zombie family or something like that. It's a little
I've
off.
seen some zombie baby prints. Oh dear.
Me
Oh
too.
man, we're like, it's beautiful.
And just as a callback to earlier, I don't know if you remember, I said print it as big as possible because it gives the laser more room to transition from light to dark, so you get a better quality result. Now, of course, we could take this photo and we could shrink it down so we could print it more quickly. But that affects the end result. That is not true representation of what your photos look like.
That's interesting.
So make the picture as big as you actually want to print it, 5x7, for example.
Crop and then
cut out a bit, cut out a bit that you want to test and print it at the actual size it's going to be with the final print.
Yeah.
And that way you'll be able to print more quickly. You can verify what the result's going to be like. And then when you put your actual, image back in, you know what the outcome is going to be. So that's a key tip, I would say.
Do you remember how much or how long it will take to print that as a 5x7? That's one of the questions we're getting. Yeah.
This one at draft photo, including the engrave, there's a score line around the outside and a cut line, was just under 18 minutes.
Okay.
I think. So it was relatively quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could make it a little quicker, but at that point you start affecting the level of brightness and contrast within the image. So, we did work really hard to try and make these settings as good as we could. They're not perfect. You could maybe improve them, but about 17 minutes to make something like this. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought trying to think about what
Natasha,
I should say next.
Sorry, no, we didn't say the lobster. We couldn't find it. We were just talking about the lobster photo.
Yes,
sorry, it's somewhere here in the office.
We definitely will have.
We had it.
Yeah, because it's a really good example of the level of quality. Also, that too. Yes. Yeah, it's a great example of what you can achieve.
Oh, that's why I want to show it to you. It's a really good example.
Not just embarrassing
things.
But I was just thinking, for those of you who just joined or may have joined after we started, we're talking about photo engraving, and we're kind of getting deep and into the weeds here a little bit. I'm offering my advice based on my experience. Your experience may vary, and I'll summarize it really quickly just for those of you who might want a bit of a recap. Step number one, or tip number one, is join these live streams, because I learned today that if you put borax on a material and engrave it, you can make your photos look darker.
Learn a new thing.
Which was pretty awesome. I've not tried it. I've not seen it, but I think
mixed with water was the other thing I heard.
Okay, to make like a paste, I'm assuming, so you can apply it. Okay, wonderful. But getting around into it, for the best result, start with the best possible photo you can. This image that we have here is a stock photo, so it's pretty good quality, but modern camera phones should be fine. I would just say take it outside with good lighting if you can. Don't stand next to a really busy background if you're taking photos of people. Like, make it the best that you possibly can. Preview it in black and white, switch it on your phone or something like that if you can, and that'll give you a good indication of how it's going to look in your software. Editing can help to improve the results, and we do have a couple of guides. If you go to support.glowforge.com, you can find some guides there. Or if you're already a Glowforge owner, log into app.glowforge.com, and right now, in the right-hand side, there is a link to the guides about how to optimize your photos for photo engraving like this. One thing I didn't mention, and probably my top tip, if you just want a quick edit to make your photos pop a little bit better, sharpness. If you increase the sharpness to the point where it looks a little unnatural as a photograph on a screen, that tends to give a good result.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah.
It's an easy one to do. You can do it straight in your phone. I don't know the technical details around it, but it seems to effectively produce a crisper outline around details, probably because of some math that happens and the way it moves the pixels around. But I find that's the best quick edit that you can do. Sharpness, bump it up to the top, and you'll be good. Bigger is always better. So the bigger you can print your print, the better level of detail you're going to get. And if you have a photo that has a bunch of stuff that's not important, trees, something like that, crop it out, get your subjects in the center, and print those as big as possible. And test print the important bits. Don't just scale this down and make a tiny version and print that, because that's not going to be representative of what the actual results are. It's going to look different. Instead, cut out the important bit and print that bit full size. So the same size as it's going to be in your final print, and take a look at the outcome. It'll save you some time, and it'll set your expectations.
That's such a good tip. That's really good. Nothing worse than waiting 2 hours till it gets to the face, and then
I have done that so many times, and it is so frustrating. It really
Hopefully
is.
not 2 hours.
Yes. Well.
We're getting some more questions coming in. Okay. Some of them are a little technical. Let's see. Okay, so question for you. When I have my grayscale on very power, the example shows the photo. If I switch it over to the convert to dots, the example switches to a solid blue, question mark? Okay, so you've got a solid blue right now. To a solid blue. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Do you mean that the photo in blue like we're showing right now, or do you mean like a blue square that it's not a photo? That's PNW Pines and Needles. Maybe you can give us more.
Yeah, interesting.
More detail there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, the what we're seeing here should be representative of what the laser is doing. That might suggest to me that there is some part of the image that the laser is going to treat the same. So it's basically applying like the same amount of power and speed across the entire image, making it look like a blue square. Without seeing the file itself, it's kind of hard to know exactly what's happening there. That would be my guess. Yeah, I just tried it here. It doesn't seem to be happening on my screen, but I'm not denying that it's not happening to you.
Because of course our customer success team is able to, with your permission, go back and look at your logs and see what's happening with the file that you've uploaded and how the printer is processing it. So.
And you may have found a bug, in which case, thank you. And please share that with us so we can fix it for you and for others.
Piece pouches. Can you get into doing an example, start to finish, maybe this is part 2, of a random photo that's not so perfect, and how to manipulate it to balance the dark and light? So they want more of the editing stuff, I'm thinking. We
were chatting about that before this, actually. We'd already kind of prepped a few things, but maybe next time when we do part 2, we'll take a selfie at the beginning. We'll show you what it might be like to print it. Maybe we'll do 2. We won't edit one, and we'll go through, we'll edit the other one, print both side by side so you can kind of look and see. In fact,
like printing a selfie live, that could be a fun one.
Yeah. Like
Nick was playing around with this earlier.
I don't know if this really helps very much. Well, no. Well, you can see what I'm looking at. It doesn't really help to illustrate my point, but these are all draft photos. Here is an experiment that I was doing, just trying to speed things up a little bit. But you can see by speeding things up, we're applying less power over the same period of time. So it's just
that's kind of that pencil drawing effect that you were talking about. Maybe that's what happened there. Maybe it was too fast. Yeah.
That one turned out okay. These are just straight from my phone.
You can see he's standing right here.
Yeah, right. But they're also really small. The bigger they are, the better they're going to be. But we could do that. That seems like a great suggestion. And maybe we do like a person in the landscape. Maybe I shouldn't get ahead of myself, actually.
Okay, Jeff says, if you engrave the same photo on a Glowforge Basic and a Glowforge Pro, using the default draft photo settings, would it produce the same results since the Pro has a 45-watt laser versus a 40-watt on the Basic? Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
So technical. I think, yes, I think it should. I think what the 45-watt does is allow the laser to go faster. So I think it could take longer to achieve the same results, but they should look the same.
So technically, if you're running laser at full power, then the Pro, every time it strikes the material, is going to apply more power there. Because it's a single individual dot, and generally the laser's turning on and off really, really quickly, I don't know if you would notice the result specifically. If you were to switch both machines to 100 power, which is 100% precision power on that slider, they are both going to be operating the same. It's that top end that's going to be slightly different. The end result is going to depend again on your material and your photo.
Yeah.
If the photo features a lot of engraving, it's very dark, then the Pro has more of an opportunity to basically utilize the extra power it has. And so you might notice that it's going to look a bit darker and go a little bit deeper. But I think for something like this, in all honesty, with it just being a series of dots, I don't know that you really notice the difference very much. Yeah. Now, I haven't tested it. I don't want to promise that's the case, but I think that's what you would expect.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of people saying they'd love to see the editing process.
Okay.
And a little more info from that one user, PNW Pines and Needles. So about the blue.
Yep.
So they have a circular photo, and on very power, they can see the photo in blue. I assume how we could.
Yeah.
And then when I switch to convert to dots, it just turns into a solid blue circle. I mean, that sounds like perhaps a bug. That doesn't sound like something that's supposed to happen.
No, I agree. I can't replicate it here with my photo that I have right now. So I think next step, unfortunately, is for us to see that photo.
This looks like this family's on Dateline. Like, it's like they were a happy family. Boom.
You know,
Sorry, so you should be getting the Dateline effect, and if you're not, then something's
it's actually
wrong.
a really great segue into a tip that I was thinking about sharing, and that is
Not Dateline?
If we show, well, no, not Dateline. If we show this right now, what we're looking at is effectively an inverted image. Everything that's black is white, and vice versa. Some materials, acrylic is a good one. When you engrave it, it actually appears to get lighter rather than darker. If that's the case, when you engrave it, your picture looks like this. Well, it looks crazy. It's not what you want at all. To counteract that, open that photograph in something like Preview on your Mac or some imaging software on your Windows computer, and just invert the image. Upload it, and then when you engrave it, the result will look like a more natural photo on the material.
That makes perfect sense.
Metals, I think, are the same. I'm pretty sure they, depending on the color you start with, appear to get lighter rather than darker. So yeah, inverting might be something that you have to do. If your image looks a little off, maybe that's what it is. Yeah. Okay. All right. What else?
I've never seen so many questions. This is so fun.
It's interesting because we're always wondering what level of detail people are interested in.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot.
Well, okay, we've had over 130 people vote in the poll.
Okay.
And we've got 58% Glowforge owners watching right now and 42% not yet Glowforge owners. So
that's a pretty
like
50-50
a nice
split.
mix.
That's great.
Yeah, which is really fun. I love having owners here.
Yeah.
Jeff is just saying for the future episode on the editing process, we'd love to see tips on prepping photos for engraving on clear acrylic. Wow, Jeff, you're in our brain.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah, that'd be great. And for acrylic, we invert it and make it grayscale.
Yep.
Very power or convert to tots? Question mark. Cindy says.
Yeah, so it would depend. So very power is what we call a 3D engrave. Maybe we can show this real quick. And maybe this one.
These three.
Yeah. So.
Not that one?
Well, I mean, we
Sorry, I said three and then said three things. Or two things.
It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
But basically, these have taken a bitmap image. So similar kind of thing to your photo. But instead of changing the concentration of dots, where the laser is striking the material to give an idea of dark to light, it's increasing or decreasing the power. So it's literally like carving into the material. And you use what's called a depth map to create this. They're not necessarily super easy to make. You can do really simple ones, such as I use them to engrave like fish scales for grips on things that I'm creating. Might be a handle on a carry case or something like that. And those ones I can show you really easily. If you search for 3D engraved depth map in Google or something like that, you'll see an example of what I'm talking about. If you're a pretty advanced Photoshop user or something like that, or you have access to 3D CAD or 3D modeling software, they're super easy to make. Otherwise, a little bit more technical. But the reason I mention it is with acrylic, because it is a thicker material and a transparent material, you could engrave from the back forwards.
Yep.
So effectively put your material in upside down and then flip it over, and you would see within the material kind of a relief effect.
Yep.
That looks kind of cool. Sometimes it works better than others. I have definitely seen it work pretty well. Like this, for example, this Jamaica map, because it's a 3D relief. Maybe if I just show this real quick.
The frame, by the way, is part of the print. So this is one piece of wood.
Yeah.
It's pretty mind-blowing, really.
The same with the compass that's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see the level of detail, if I can get it to focus, that's in that print. But yeah, you see how this is kind of a 3-dimensional thing? If we engrave that into the back of a piece of 1/4-inch acrylic from the front, you probably get this cool like 3D relief effect.
Yeah.
The trouble is, and this is where we're getting into like the photo, the technique of photo engraving and the way that material responds to the laser. As soon as you hit that acrylic, it tends to turn the same color. So unless your different depths are exaggerated, they'll often kind of merge into one sort of blob. And so the result might not be quite what you're looking for. It's possible, not super easy, but we should try it. If you're interested in knowing, let's give it a go.
3D engrave is something we've thought about doing live, but one thing is it can be really, really like time intensive. Like this is like an all day print to do something like this. And then you would also need to like rinse it off and stuff like that.
There's some dedication required to do something like that. But we could certainly do a simple example. Maybe we integrate it
like
into
the grips, like you're talking about, things like that.
Yeah, that's straightforward to do.
Wow, this has been so fun. Yeah, people are saying they'd love to see that. They love the texture.
Okay.
So fun.
All right, great.
We will be back on a weekly basis doing prints. Comment if you have ideas of things you'd like us to see, techniques you want to learn, things you want to print. We're always filling up our calendars. And
let us know what we can improve too. We're trying to be helpful to you. If some of this was not good, then do let us know.
Don't make jokes about Dateline. Like Daily Not Funny. Stop. Just let Meg talk about printing.
You have to remind people as well that it happened. But also, this episode is going to be available after the fact on our YouTube channel too.
Yes.
So if you join us a little bit later, maybe you want to go back and revisit some of this stuff, you absolutely can.
And we've done a lot of these. Like what? How many do you think we've done? I don't.
Must be at least 1,000, right? No, not quite that many.
No, we've done like 50 or something. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. We started kind of sporadically, but more recently, 6 months, 8 months?
We've been doing them once a week or something. Yeah. So
they're fun to do. I'm glad we get to do it.
1,000.
Yeah, 1,000. It won't be long. It'll be 1,000 soon. Yeah, maybe that's when I retire. I'm not sure. Okay. Anyway. Out of the vet, let us know how we did. Let us know what you want to see. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your interaction. Thank you for the borax tip too. We'll be trying that out. Yeah, and well, thanks again, everybody. This is